What would you do if someone cut through your gate, threw a party in your backyard, and almost got someone hurt? All without your permission? This isn't just a wild HOA story, it's real, it's intense, and it spirals way beyond a pool party. Stick around to the very end, because trust me, the twist you're about to see? You won't see it coming. The metal gate screeched as it hit the pavement. I was standing on the edge of my back porch, a dripping towel still wrapped around my shoulders, when the sound shattered the summer silence. My eyes darted to the front yard. And there she was. Karen. Not just any Karen, the Karen from our Homeowners Association. Platinum blonde bob, giant sunglasses, floral sundress, and that signature smirk. But this time, she wasn't holding a clipboard. She was gripping a pair of bolt cutters. Behind her, at least 24 people, adults, teens, and toddlers, were hauling coolers, beach chairs, and pool floaties across my front lawn like they owned the place. My no trespassing sign lay crumpled under someone's shoe. Loud music started to blare from a portable speaker, and the scent of grilled burgers drifted in with the chaos. Karen turned to the crowd and clapped. "Come on in, folks. Pool's open." She had broken into my property to throw a full-blown pool party. On a Sunday. Without asking. Without warning. I stood frozen for a second. And then I noticed something that made my heart skip. Karen's teenage son had just yanked off the tarp I'd used to cover the deep end. But that deep end, it wasn't safe. I bolted forward, shouting his name, but it was too late. His foot slipped as he stepped onto the slick edge. He was falling. And just like that, everything froze. That's where I'll leave you for now. Because before we get to that moment, you need to know how it all began. I moved to Meadowbrook just under a year ago. It's a quiet, sunny suburb on the edge of town, filled with winding sidewalks, kids on bikes, and American flags swaying from porch rails. The kind of place where everyone waves, dogs bark politely, and lawnmowers hum every Saturday morning like a chorus. After saving for nearly a decade, I finally bought the little tan house on the corner lot. It came with a big backyard, a half-covered patio, and a pool that needed more love than chlorine. I spent every weekend fixing it up. Painted the deck. Replaced the cracked tiles. Built a new gate with reinforced hinges because the last one barely held up in a breeze. It became my sanctuary? But if Meadowbrook was paradise, then the HOA was its moody gatekeeper. They were always watching. Always judging. Letters in the mailbox if your grass was an inch too tall. Fines if your curtains weren't neutral colored. Warnings for excessive wind chimes. And leading that HOA army was Karen McMillan. Karen had lived in Meadowbrook for over 15 years. She'd won president of the HOA 6 years in a row, because no one else wanted the job. She called herself a community standards guardian, but everyone knew she just loved control. She started small with me. I left a note on my door about repainting my mailbox. Sent me an email about my trash cans being visible from the road. Once she even knocked on my door to complain that the wind blew one of my leaves into her yard. But the real tension started after I declined her invitation to join the HOA planning committee. "It's how we keep things in order here," she said, her tone as sugary as it was sharp. "New neighbors should take pride in our shared vision." I told her I preferred to focus on my own home for now. That I'd think about it. She never smiled at me again after that. Still, I tried to stay kind. I waved when I saw her. Shoveled her sidewalk during the winter storm. Gave her son, Brady, an extra towel once when he fell into my yard during a football game. But it didn't matter. The letters kept coming. Then one day, I came home to find my gate unlatched. Nothing was taken, but I had a gut feeling it wasn't an accident. That's when I installed a small camera just above the gate, discreet but clear enough to catch faces. A week later, I caught Karen peeking into my backyard. When I confronted her, she said she was checking for code violations. I reminded her my property was not her jurisdiction. She walked off without another word. That's when I knew something was coming. The final straw came 3 weeks before the party. A neighborhood kid had been injured at the HOA community pool, nothing major, just a twisted ankle. But the HOA voted to temporarily close the pool while they upgraded safety measures. That's when Karen sent out the newsletter. To ensure our kids still enjoy the summer, the HOA is seeking alternative spaces for community swim gatherings. Let's come together as neighbors. I saw the newsletter. I rolled my eyes and didn't think twice. But apparently, Karen had other plans. It was the Sunday after the 4th of July. I had just finished cleaning the pool and placed a tarp over the deep end because I discovered a crack in the foundation. Nothing urgent, but enough to make swimming unsafe until I could get it repaired. I put up 2 signs, pool closed, do not use in private property, do not enter. Then I left for a quick grocery run. I was gone 45 minutes. When I returned, my gate was lying on the ground like a broken tooth. Cars lined the street. Laughter echoed across the yard. And Karen? She was handing out popsicles and calling herself a hero for the kids. I pushed through the crowd, trying not to lose it. Karen. What is going on? She turned and smiled like we were old friends. Oh, relax. The community needed this. You have the only other pool on this side of the block. I figured you wouldn't mind. It's just for today. You broke my gate. No, I repurposed the entry. And it'll be fixed. We're all just here to cool off. You should thank me. This is what being part of a community is about. I looked around. Some parents gave me guilty glances. Others just avoided my eyes. But their kids were already in the water, shrieking and splashing. And then I saw Brady, Karen's son, pulling at the pool tarp. I sprinted toward him. Don't touch that. I yelled. He looked up, confused. It's just a cover. He tugged harder. The corner slipped. His foot caught on the wet tiles. And in that instant, he slipped. Time slowed. Gasps filled the air. And before I could reach him, he fell. Straight into the deep end. His body hit the water with a sharp splash, the kind that sounds different when it's not for fun. People screamed. Popsicles dropped. Karen's sunglasses fell off her face. I didn't think, I jumped. My shoes hit the patio and kicked off mid-run. I tore the rest of the tarp back as I dove in, arms slicing through the water just as Brady started to sink. His limbs flailed for a second, then stilled. He was stunned, not drowning yet, but it was deep, and the crack I had warned about was just beneath him. The ground was unstable, and if he hit it wrong. I got to him in 4 long strokes and wrapped my arm around his chest, lifting his head above the surface. I've got you, I said, but he was coughing too hard to hear it. Behind me, parents were yelling, some backing away from the edge of the pool. Karen was frozen in place, one hand covering her mouth, the other clutching her phone like it might explain what just happened. I pulled Brady to the shallow end and pushed him up toward the steps. Another dad, Mr. Daniels, from 2 houses down, helped haul him out. Is he okay? I gasped. Brady coughed up more water and nodded weakly, blinking. He's okay, Daniels said, but his voice was tight. You saved him. I climbed out, soaked, heart racing, my bare feet slapping the concrete. Karen rushed forward, finally shaking off her shock. Is he all right? Brady, sweetie? He needs a towel and some rest, I said. That deep end isn't safe. There's a crack. I had the tarp and the signs up for a reason. Karen turned to me, eyes wide. You didn't say anything about that. I didn't get the chance because you broke into my property. That word, broke, seemed to cut through the air. A few parents shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean any harm, Karen said, her voice quivering now. The kids needed a place, and I thought. You thought this was yours to take, I finished. Without asking. You took my home and made it your event space. I didn't think. You didn't care. The crowd was quiet now. The music had been turned off. No one was in the pool anymore. For a moment, it was just wind and the soft creak of my ruined gate swaying on one hinge. I wrapped a towel around Brady, who still looked shaken. Go sit down, I said gently. You're going to be fine. Then I turned to everyone else. Party's over. Please leave. No one argued. Some nodded, and a few muttered apologies. The parents packed up slowly, herding their kids and folding chairs toward the street. Karen stood there, stunned. You can't be serious, she muttered. After everything I've done for this neighborhood? I didn't respond. I just walked past her, picked up the crumpled private property sign, and held it up. You missed this on your way in. She flinched. But she didn't say another word. She just turned and followed the others out, leaving wet footprints on the driveway behind her. When they were gone, I finally let myself sit down. My hands were still shaking. The gate was ruined. The tarp was ripped. My pool needed new repairs. But Brady was safe. And that was all that mattered, for now. The next morning, I got a knock at the door. It was Mr. Daniels, holding a cup of coffee and a toolbox. Thought you could use some help, he said. With the gate. I blinked at him, surprised. You don't have to do that. I know, he smiled. But some of us still believe in neighbors helping neighbors. Besides, I was part of that mess yesterday. Least I can do. I stepped aside. Come on in. We spent the morning reattaching the gate, though it still needed full replacement. He stayed for lunch. We talked about football, the neighborhood, and his kid starting college. He was one of the first people to treat me like more than an outsider since I moved in. You handled it well, you know, he said as we packed up the tools. Could have yelled, called the cops. But you didn't? I shrugged. Didn't see the point. They're still my neighbors. Just lost their way for a minute. He nodded. You're a better man than me. But not everyone thought I was handling it right. By that evening, the HOA group chat was buzzing. I wasn't in it, but one of the moms, Tina, sent me screenshots. Karen was already spinning the story. No one told me the pool was unsafe. I was trying to help. He overreacted. He's new and not very open to community values. Maybe someone should look into whether his setup is even up to code. The words stung more than I expected. I wasn't looking for praise. But I hadn't expected smears. And then came the flyer. Folded and taped to my mailbox the next morning. Emergency HOA meeting, review of community pool conduct, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Guess who was on the agenda? Me. The meeting wasn't even official. There was no notice, no proper vote. Karen just decided it was happening. I stared at the flyer for a long time. I could ignore it. Or I could show up. Maybe for the first time. I needed to make a little noise. Tuesday evening rolled around fast. I walked into the clubhouse in jeans and a black t-shirt. Notice how the room quieted when I came in. Some people nodded at me. Others just looked away. Karen sat at the head of the table like she always did, flanked by two members of her little board, Ron and Shelley, both of whom barely ever spoke unless Karen gave them a look. She tapped the mic. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Tonight's discussion will center on the unauthorized use of private property, safety concerns, and neighborly responsibility. I held up my hand. So we're all here to talk about how you trespassed on my land, broke my gate, and nearly got your son hurt? Karen blinked. Shelley gasped. No, Karen said carefully, we're here to discuss how personal decisions can affect the broader community. I laughed. You mean how your personal decision to break the law affected everyone? Murmurs rippled through the room. Karen stood up, pushing her chair back. We have rules in this community. Structure. That's how Meadowbrook thrives. When people start acting like they're above it. You're the one who acted above the rules, Karen. She tried to talk over me, but I raised my voice just enough. You didn't ask? You didn't call? You didn't even knock? You took. That's not community. That's control. A few people clapped. Karen flushed. Then Ron, silent until now, cleared his throat. I think we should table this until we can review everything properly. Karen whipped her head toward him, surprised. But then Daniel stood up in the back. I was there. He's right. And that's when Karen made a mistake. She pointed at me and snapped. He has cameras. Maybe we should ask what else he's recording. The room fell silent. And just like that, everyone turned to me. Even I was confused for a second. But then I realized something. She had seen the camera. The one by the gate. Which meant. I narrowed my eyes. Funny. I never told you where the camera was. Karen froze. And that's when I knew. She'd been on my property before the pool party. Maybe even more than once. You could almost hear her heartbeat pounding through the silence. Karen's lips parted, but no words came out. Everyone in the room was staring at her now, not me. Her own allies, Shelley and Ron, glanced at each other nervously. A woman in the second row whispered something to her husband, who raised an eyebrow. I held my gaze steady. I want to be very clear, I said slowly, so every word landed. I never told anyone I had a camera on my gate. So if Karen knew it was there, she must have been there before. Daniels finished from the back of the room. Karen shook her head, trying to compose herself. That's not. I saw the light on the wall. Anyone could have seen it. That doesn't prove anything. But it wasn't visible unless you walked inside the yard, I replied. That's how I designed it. It only flashes when someone is already at the gate. Her face paled just a little. That's when Shelley leaned toward her, whispering something urgent. Karen stiffened. Then she plastered on a smile and turned back to the group. This is getting off topic, she said. I think emotions are running high. Let's reschedule this for next week and allow everyone time to reflect calmly. It was a weak retreat, but a retreat nonetheless. I agree, Ron added quickly. We're done here. The crowd murmured as people began to rise. I stayed seated. Karen rushed to pack her notes, keeping her head low as she slipped out through a side door. She never looked back. Daniels walked over and clapped me on the shoulder. Well, he said, I think you just cracked her crown. I gave a small smile. It's not about taking her down. I just want my house to be mine. I know, he said. But still. That was something. The next day was strangely quiet. The street, normally buzzing with joggers, strollers, and dogs by 9 a.m., felt like someone hit a mute button. I sat on my porch sipping coffee, half expecting Karen to show up with a new excuse. But she didn't. No one did. Until 2 p.m. That's when I heard footsteps on the gravel. I turned and saw a boy, Brady. Karen's son. He had a backpack slung over one shoulder and a baseball cap pulled low, but he looked nervous. Hey, he said softly. I stood up. Hey. You all right? He nodded. I just wanted to say thanks. For saving me. And. Sorry. I shook my head. You don't owe me an apology, Brady. None of this was your fault. He kicked a rock with his sneaker. Mom's been acting weird. She said we might move. That caught me off guard. Move? She's been getting a lot of emails. People are mad. Someone heard a step down. She's been yelling a lot at home. I crouched to his eye level. None of this is your burden, okay? I'm just glad you're safe. He looked up. I'm scared she's going to blame me. I paused for a beat. Then, gently, she might. But that doesn't mean it's true. Sometimes grown-ups don't know how to deal with being wrong. But you did nothing wrong. He nodded again, then hesitated. There's something else. I waited. She was in your yard before. At night. I saw her. Like 2 weeks ago. She made me promise not to tell. She said you were hiding something and she had to protect the neighborhood. I felt a twist in my chest. Did she take anything? No. But she went near the pump system and the storage box. I think she took pictures. That changed everything. I thanked him and told him to go home, told him he did the right thing by telling the truth. Then I walked straight to my backyard. The pump system was still locked. But the box next to it, where I kept old pool maintenance logs and receipts, had been disturbed. The padlock was missing. I had assumed I misplaced it weeks ago. Now I wasn't so sure. I checked inside. Nothing looked stolen, but the papers were shuffled, out of order. Something had been touched. I pulled my phone out and opened the camera app. Rewound through the last few weeks of footage. It had been a blur of birds, wind, and mailmen. Then, on the night of June 18 at 11:49 p.m., there she was. Karen. Hoodie pulled over her head. She approached the gate, then climbed over it when she saw it locked. She moved straight for the pool pump area. Spent 7 minutes there. Took pictures. Climbed back out. I stared at the screen. She hadn't just trespassed. She had planned this. She had scoped my backyard, taken pictures of my pool and equipment, and possibly even filed false reports with the HOA before launching her little community party. And now she was trying to bury it. I took a deep breath and saved the footage to the cloud. Then I called my lawyer. 2 days later, a letter arrived from the HOA. A formal complaint had been filed against me for unauthorized surveillance of community members. It was signed by Karen. There was a hearing set for next week. I couldn't help it, I laughed. She was doubling down. She still thought she could win. But I wasn't backing down either. Because what Karen didn't know was that I had more than video. And the next time we faced off, I wasn't walking in alone. Not this time. That Saturday, the doorbell rang. I opened it and was surprised to find Tina, the mom who'd been quietly supportive, the one who had sent me the screenshots from the HOA chat. She held out a flash drive. I think you should have this, she said. Karen sent this to Shelley. Said it was insurance. I think it's worse than she wants anyone to know. I took the flash drive and nodded. Thank you. She's losing grip, Tina added. People are tired. You might actually have a shot. I closed the door, sat down, and plugged it into my laptop. Inside the folder, a scanned document titled HOA Pool Liability Waiver, Modified. I clicked it open, and my jaw dropped. Karen had forged a waiver with my name on it, claiming I had given permission to use my pool for neighborhood emergency events. She even signed it. But it wasn't my signature. It was close. But not close enough. She had crossed a line. Now, this wasn't just trespassing. It was fraud. And I had everything I needed to prove it. Just as I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, another email pinged in. This time, from the HOA's legal department. They wanted a private conversation. And suddenly, it wasn't just the neighborhood watching Karen anymore. It was the law. The meeting was set for Monday at noon. The HOA's legal advisor, a middle-aged man named Richard with thin glasses and a calm voice, requested that we meet at the community clubhouse, the same place Karen had tried to humiliate me just a week earlier. Only this time, she wouldn't be running the show. I brought my folder. Inside, printed screenshots of the HOA group chat, my camera footage with timestamps, and a copy of the forged waiver. I also had Tina's flash drive safely backed up and encrypted. I wasn't walking into a trap. Richard welcomed me with a tight smile and gestured to a chair across from him. Beside him sat another board member, Marjorie, a sharp-eyed woman who had once voted with Karen on every issue but now looked like she was questioning her life decisions. "Thanks for coming," Richard began. "We understand things have escalated rapidly." I nodded. "That's one way to put it. We've reviewed your video submission and the digital files provided by Tina. Quite frankly, this is troubling." Marjorie cleared her throat. "Karen hasn't responded to our emails since Friday. Her phone goes straight to voicemail." "She's hiding," I said flatly. "Because she knows she's caught." Richard adjusted his glasses. "Let's walk through this carefully. The camera footage confirms unauthorized entry to your property. The waiver document appears to be digitally altered. We've already begun handwriting analysis on the signature." He looked up at me. "Did you sign any document giving permission for HOA events to take place in your yard?" "Never," I said. "Not verbally, not in writing." Richard nodded and closed his folder. "In that case, the board has grounds to suspend Karen from all leadership positions effective immediately. If the signature is confirmed forged, we may be required to report the matter to local authorities." It was quiet for a moment. Even the AC humming in the background seemed to stop. Marjorie leaned forward. "Do you want to press charges?" I paused. The question landed like a weight on the table. Part of me did. Deep down, after everything, the trespassing, the lies, the public humiliation, the danger to her own son, I wanted her to face the full consequences. But there was also Brady. A kid who had trusted me with the truth. A kid already scared of what his mom might do next. "I just want her removed," I said. "Let her face whatever the law decides. But I don't want this to be about revenge. Just justice. That's all." They nodded in agreement. Marjorie looked almost relieved. Richard stood. "We'll take it from here. You'll be notified before the next hearing." As I walked out of the clubhouse, the sun hit my face, warm and sharp. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. But the peace didn't last long. That evening, I noticed something strange. The side gate, the one that led to the back of my property, was unlocked. I was sure I'd closed it. I went out and checked the latch. It hadn't been broken, just unhooked. A chill ran up my spine. I turned and scanned the fence line, the bushes, and the street. Nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there. I went back inside and rewound the camera footage from the back alley. No movement. No shadows. No figure. But the gate had still been opened. I tightened the latch and placed a sensor alarm on it. The kind that sends a text alert if it's triggered. I wasn't taking any more chances. The next day, I drove out to pick up pool repair materials. The crack in the deep end needed sealing before it turned into a full break. I was at the store for maybe 45 minutes. When I got back, there were footprints on my deck. Not shoe prints. Bare feet. Small, narrow. I checked the side gate. Still locked. But when I checked the camera footage, the recording had been wiped from noon to 2 p.m. Gone. Just static. The rest of the files were intact. Someone had tampered with the system. Whoever it was had access to the feed. And they knew exactly what they were doing. I made a quick call to Daniels. "Hey. I think someone's messing with my property again." He didn't hesitate. "I'll be right over." In 15 minutes, he arrived with another neighbor, Paul, an ex-IT guy who now fixed home security systems on the side. They checked the wiring, the camera logs, everything. Paul whistled softly. Someone either used a signal jammer or physically reset the recorder. That's not just nosy neighbor stuff. That's professional. Daniels crossed his arms. You think Karen would go that far? She's desperate, I muttered. And she's not thinking clearly. Paul nodded slowly. If I were you, I'd get a backup system. Something battery powered. Wireless. Something even she wouldn't expect. I thanked them both and made the order that same night. The new system would arrive in 2 days. Until then, I'd be sleeping lightly. The next morning, I found a letter shoved under my back door. No envelope. Just a torn sheet of notebook paper. The handwriting was rushed. Slanted. Almost shaky. You've ruined everything. He's going to hate me. I just wanted one summer to feel normal. You took that from us. From him. But don't worry. You'll understand soon. No name. No signature. But I didn't need one. It was Karen. The guilt. The paranoia. The warped belief that she was protecting something bigger than herself, it was all there, between the lines. And that last part? You'll understand soon. It rang like a warning. I brought the note to the HOA board that afternoon. Richard said they'd forward it to legal. But something in his face changed after he read it. He looked worried. Very worried. We may need to involve the police now, he said quietly. For your safety. I nodded. But I was already a step ahead. Because what no one knew. It was that I had just discovered a second camera. One even Karen didn't know existed. One that wasn't connected to the network. And it had caught something the others missed. A figure. Hunched. Moving near the pump house. Dragging something. I zoomed in. And froze. It was Karen. And she wasn't alone. She wasn't alone. In the grainy footage, lit by only the soft glow of my neighbor's porch light across the street, Karen stood beside a second figure, taller, broader, wearing a hoodie pulled low over their face. They were crouched near the pump shed, whispering back and forth. Karen pointed at something on the ground, and the figure knelt, reaching into a black duffel bag. Then the camera cut out. Not from signal loss. Not from weather. The lens was covered by something. That was last night, about 3 a.m. I stared at the paused frame, heart pounding. My backup system hadn't arrived yet, but that old camera, the one hidden inside the birdhouse, had captured just enough to prove I wasn't paranoid. Karen was not acting alone anymore. And whatever they were planning, it was getting worse. I called Daniels again. I have new footage, I told him. He showed up 20 minutes later with Paul, who brought a portable monitor and some decoding software. We extracted the timestamp and cleaned up the graininess a little. Paul confirmed it wasn't just tampering this time. They were preparing something. Daniels folded his arms. She's escalating. She tried to bury you with HOA rules and fake papers, and that didn't work. Now she's sneaking into your yard with some stranger in the dead of night? That's not petty drama anymore. That's a threat. We agreed it was time to involve the police, not just HOA legal. By noon, an officer named Sergeant Walker was reviewing the footage at my dining table. He didn't say much at first. Just nodded, took notes, and asked about previous incidents. When I told him about the forgery, the trespassing, the wiped footage, and the barefoot prints, he leaned forward. Do you feel unsafe in your home? I hesitated. I didn't. But now? Yeah. He nodded and stood. We'll start patrols on your street. Nighttime checks. If you see anything, even if a motion light goes off, you call us. Got it? Got it. Then he handed me a small device. A panic button, connected directly to dispatch. If they come back, you press that. We'll be here in under 3 minutes. For the first time in days, I felt like maybe this was about to end. But I was wrong. Because that night, it started all over again. It began with the wind. The kind of wind that shows up out of nowhere, no warning, no breeze before it. Just a sudden, heavy gust that shakes the windows and tosses branches into the street. I was dozing off on the couch when I heard the loud clatter of something falling outside. Then a soft, metallic clang. Like a tool being dropped. I grabbed the panic button and rushed to the back door. The gate was shut. But the sensor blinked red. It had been opened. Then I saw it, movement near the pool house. Just a blur of a shadow, slipping behind the shed. I didn't wait. I pressed the button. 2 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights bathed the backyard in color. Officers moved in with flashlights and shouted commands. But the yard was empty. No, Karen. No stranger. Just a broken latch on the pool shed and footprints, fresh, heavy, and unmistakably adult, leading out through the side. Walker arrived 5 minutes later. We missed them by seconds, he muttered. I pointed to the shed. They were after something. We opened it together. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. My old tools, the chlorine bags, the skimmer net. But when I reached for the shelf that held my sealed pump records, the old service logs, repair photos, and permit paperwork, they were gone. All of it. Just an empty plastic bin. Whoever broke in had taken everything tied to the pool's history. The one thing that could have proven Karen's story was a lie in front of the whole HOA. And they took it without leaving a trace. Walker sighed and pulled out a small evidence bag. He picked up a folded scrap of paper from the corner of the shed. Just a torn piece from a notebook, crumpled and damp. There was only one word written on it, in rushed ink. Retract. He looked at me. She's trying to pressure you. She thinks if you back off, this all disappears. I shook my head. She's not trying to pressure me. She's trying to erase me. By morning, the neighborhood had exploded with whispers. People saw the cop cars. They saw the flashlights. Some had heard yelling. I didn't post anything online, but by lunchtime, someone had already uploaded a post titled "Another HOA Incident? What's going on at that corner house?" Complete with a blurry photo of me talking to the police. Karen, of course, used the chaos to play victim. I found a new flyer taped to my fence. This time, it was a full-on petition. Immediate community review of surveillance and safety threats posed by unauthorized equipment and aggressive neighbors. She had already gathered 25 signatures. And the worst part? Some of the names were people I thought had supported me. People who had nodded during my speech at the last meeting. Who had clapped when Karen slipped? Daniels was furious. She's turning this whole thing into some twisted HOA war, he said. We have evidence. Proof. Why aren't people seeing it? Because Karen's good at one thing, I said quietly. She knows how to weaponize fear. We needed something bigger. Stronger. Then Paul had an idea. What if we hosted an open forum? Not an HOA meeting. Something outside her power. Invite everyone. Play the footage. Show the signatures. Put it all out there. I looked at him. You mean? Blow the whole thing wide open? Exactly. I took a breath. Let's do it. The next Saturday, we set it up. The community center was open for reservation. Daniels booked it. Paul brought the tech. Tina helped spread the word through the neighborhood's parent group chat. No official HOA seal. No Karen-approved bulletin. Just a single flyer that read, "Truth Matters, a community forum on safety, trust, and the future of Meadowbrook. Saturday, 6 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Nothing hidden." That night, the room was packed. Over 60 people. More than any HOA meeting ever held. Karen arrived 15 minutes late. And she wasn't alone. She brought a man in a black jacket, broad-shouldered, wearing the same hoodie I'd seen in the video. His face was familiar, but I couldn't place it. He stayed at the back of the room, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. Karen stood tall, like she wasn't rattled at all. But her hands were shaking. Daniel stepped up first. "Thank you all for coming. Tonight isn't about politics or titles. It's about truth. And we're going to show you everything." We played the first video. Karen is climbing my gate. Then the fake waiver, side by side with my actual signature. The footage of her at night, whispering with the man in the hoodie. Gasps echoed. Some people turned to stare at her. Then Paul zoomed in on a paused frame. The man's face was just clear enough. And suddenly, I remembered. That wasn't just anyone. That was Karen's ex-husband. The one she'd claimed moved to Nevada 5 years ago. But he never left. He was still in town. And now, somehow, he was in my backyard, at night, helping her break the law. Before I could speak, the man in the back of the room turned and walked out. Quick. Quiet. Like he knew we had him. Karen stood, panicked. "Wait, Ron." She called after him. But he was gone. And all eyes were back on her. She opened her mouth. But this time, no lies came out. Only silence. The silence was deep. Karen stood frozen, her mouth half open, her whole body trembling now. The door behind her slowly swung shut after Ron slipped out. The sound of it slamming was like the final gavel of a courtroom verdict. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. The room just stared. Tina stepped forward, her voice low but cutting. "You lied. You forged. You broke into someone's home. You endangered your own child. And you did all of it. For what? A pool party?" Karen's eyes darted across the crowd, searching for a single friendly face. None came. Her voice finally broke the tension. "You don't understand," she said, unsteady. "Ron. He was supposed to take the fall. That's why he came back. He said he'd handle everything. I didn't think he'd leave me like this." Daniels looked around the room. "So it's true? Everything?" Karen laughed, a wild, high-pitched sound that didn't belong in her throat. "Of course it's true. I ran that HOA for 15 years. I built this neighborhood. When the board said no to fixing the community pool, I knew it would ruin the summer. And him?" She pointed at me. "He had a perfect pool sitting there. Locked behind a gate like some precious museum piece. I figured one party wouldn't hurt anyone." "You brought 50 people onto my private property," I said calmly. "And your son nearly drowned?" Her expression twisted. "That was an accident. He shouldn't have." "He was a child," I snapped. "He trusted you. Brady wasn't there. Thank God." Karen collapsed into the nearest chair, her breath coming in sharp bursts now. "I was trying to fix things. I was trying to matter." That last part hit me. Because beneath the arrogance, the control, the forged documents, and the lies was a woman unraveling from her own need to be important. But she'd gone too far. Richard, the HOA's legal advisor, who had quietly entered halfway through the presentation, stepped forward. "Ms. McMillan, you are officially relieved of your duties as HOA president. Effective immediately. You are also banned from holding any future leadership position in this neighborhood." Karen didn't fight it. She just lowered her head. He continued. "Given the nature of the forged document and your unauthorized entries, we filed formal complaints with the city's legal office. There will be an investigation. Law enforcement has been notified. If you do not comply, further charges may be pressed." Karen didn't speak again. She stood up slowly, walked past the crowd, and disappeared out the door. No fanfare, no final glare, just a quiet exit from the neighborhood she once ruled. And with that, it was over. Or so we thought. 2 days passed. Peace returned to Meadowbrook. For the first time since I moved in, kids actually waved to me when I watered my lawn. Daniels brought over ribs. Tina baked a pie. People started to see me not as the guy Karen hated, but as the one who stood up when no one else could. And Brady? He knocked on my door with a shoebox full of thank you notes from other kids on the block. Each one drawn with crayon. Each one ending in a smiley face. But just when everything seemed calm, the storm returned. On Wednesday night at 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Backyard. I opened the camera app and froze. There, on my patio. The man in the hoodie. Ron. He wasn't sneaking this time. He was standing dead center in front of my door, staring at the camera, holding something in his hand. A long, thin metal rod. I reached for the panic button, but just as I hit it, he raised the rod and jammed it into the doorbell cam. The screen went black. But I was already moving. I grabbed the bat from under my bed and yelled out through the window. Police are coming. You're on camera. But he didn't run. He didn't flinch. He turned slowly toward the street and walked away. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. No car. No tire marks. No footprints. Like a ghost. But he had left something behind. On my front doormat, a sealed envelope. Inside it, a single sentence was scribbled in all caps, "This isn't over." 3 weeks passed. No sign of Karen. No sign of Ron. The police investigated the break-in but never found fingerprints. They said he might have fled the state. Some said Karen went to stay with family. Others said she left the country. But her house stayed dark. Her mailbox is full. Until one morning, a for sale sign appeared on her lawn. The same week, a moving truck pulled up. No one was there to say goodbye. No one brought cookies. No one asked where she was going. She left the same way she lost the neighborhood. Alone. In the months that followed, the HOA changed. New leadership. New rules. More transparency. I was offered a spot on the board. I declined. I told them I wasn't interested in power. I just wanted to swim in peace. And I did. I fixed the deep end, retiled the deck, and hosted the neighborhood's first official community cookout. This time, with permission. Kids splashed in the water. Parents chatted over lemonade. And for the first time in a long time, Meadowbrook felt like home. Still, every now and then, I check the cameras at night. I double-lock the gate. Because people like Karen? They don't just disappear. They wait. They watch. And sometimes, they come back. But if they do? This time, I'll be ready. So what do you think, was justice served? Or did this Karen get off too easy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially what you would have done if this happened to you. If you enjoyed the ride, hit that like button, smash subscribe for more crazy HOA stories, and don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time. Protect your peace, and watch that gate.